Zero Authority is a community of people who believe in open source and permissionless systems. Thanks for supporting the community. Remember why you started.
We believe in this opportunity to work in Web3, and people coming in will be a massive shift.
There's a lot of opportunities that are not, they're lost, and their people's skills and their what they're really capable of doing is not able to be shined through right now.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good night, wherever you are, whoever you are. Zero Authority is a community of people who believe in trustless and permissionless systems built on Stack, secured by Bitcoin. Today we have a really special guest. I haven't been actively tracking down Joe, but I've been actively tweeting with Lunar Crush for a while now. I think for a couple years now, and I'm super stoked to have Joe. Is it Vanazi? Vanazi? Vazani. I'm so glad to have Joe Vazani on today, the founder and one of the co-founders of Lunar Crush. And you guys have been building some awesome intelligence, and the platform is amazing. You were just telling me about this new Earn product, and I think it's going to take the market by storm. It's going to really capture some really cool attention. Before we jump into how did you learn about Bitcoin, how did you find Stacks, why did you build Lunar Crush, what do you think about the Bitcoin market here? Before we jump into all of those things, Joe, my man, my guy, how are you doing today?
I'm doing really good. I mean, I know the market is the market. It's getting, kind of crushed right now. And everyone kind of thought, we're going to have this super cycle moment with the Bitcoin ETF. But I like the bear markets. I like it a little bit slower. You have a better cadence every day when, the market's just kind of doing its thing. And I think we needed a little pullback. So I'm pretty happy about it. I'll take 57K Bitcoin any day of the week, especially, having been in the industry, for a long time. But yeah, Bitcoin, man, I mean, 2015 found Bitcoin. My co-founder, John, and I were working together, and we were, building mobile apps and websites, at an ad agency. And, he's like, hey, you got any Bitcoin? I was like, what is that? Right. And this is like January 2015. And I think, bought my first Bitcoin at like $200. I always say, I think I sold that first one at like 170 for a loss, whatever. But, just kind of got the bug then, and, started learning more, and participating in the market a little bit more, started looking at the different services out there. Like, for us, it was like, how do you get data? How do you collect data? How do you get an edge on the market? How do you figure out what the, potentially other projects are that are going to be out there? And, what is blockchain? And so John and I constantly were just talking about it, always interested in it. And, it wasn't until, 2017 when, Ethereum came out, and it was kind of like, oh man, there might be like a tokenization of everything. Right. And what does that world look like? And as a lot of these projects started to come onto the market, for us, it was, it was all about social media. How do you really understand what the communities look like around all of these projects? And this was, a couple of years before like Wall Street Bets, and all that stuff. And it was, with Bitcoin, there are no earnings reports, there are no 10Ks, there is no CEO. It's all about the community and that growth. And so for us, it was, hey, let's see if we can kind of create an alternative data set for investors around cryptocurrencies. And that's really kind of what spawned the original Lunar Crush, was just, looking at things like Twitter and Reddit and YouTube and all the news. And now we have TikTok, and trying to say, hey, does Stacks, for example, have more mentions every single day than, maybe Ethereum? And what does that mean if Stacks is 1/10 of the market cap, but equal amount of social share, right? Does that mean maybe that's undervalued as a project that I want to be a part of? And so that was really the idea, was helping people kind of find that social arbitrage that's out there and making it relevant and easy, and democratizing the opportunity for everyone to get access to it. Because a lot of hedge funds and large institutions, they do have social data pipes and data feeds. And, maybe it's a small percentage of the entire market, but they have a lot more than the average person has. And so for us, it was how do we take that plus more, make it available for $8 a month, for someone to get access to institutional style data. And so, yeah, like I mentioned, Stacks, which when I found out about it was Blockstack. And we went to the first, Blockstack Summit back in 2018 at the Computer History Museum, in Silicon Valley. And I remember going to this very early on and being like, man, it is like hardcore developers, some of the nerdiest gamer people that like I would, I could tell would like play the same games as me as like a kid. And then there's like one lawyer and like one hedge fund guy. And it was like the decks. I'll never forget like looking up and like the decks that were presented back at summits like that back in the day. It was like there's no like intro slide. There's no beautiful panoramic picture image on it. It's just like graphs going all different directions. And like I was like, oh shit, we are very early right now. And so I always loved the, building, like it was building on Bitcoin back then. That was the narrative. That was the thought about what was happening. And it was kind of, if we can tie everything back to this ultimate truth machine that is Bitcoin, I feel like that was the direction that we should all be building in, and Stacks and like Blockstack at the time and Stacks now really kind of has that community that's building and has that, I would say, ethos around it. And at the end of the day, that's really what we're all doing as we build in these different kind of sovereign moats of blockchains is, does the mission of this one, basically feel true to yourself and the way that you want to build out in the world. And so that kind of felt right to me.
Joe, did you actually go in person to the Blockstack Summit?
Yeah, in 2018.
See, there aren't many people around that even knew that the name of Stacks was Blockstack before what, 2021. I found it after the whole ICO craze, and I was looking for something that was talking about Bitcoin and also kind of had like documentation like Ethereum, because like there was nothing out there that had documentation. And then I stumbled upon Stacks and I was like, holy shit, they have a lot of documentation and they break things down. And I'm like, well, at least they talk about what blockchain is. When you think about the days to the Blockstack days, what are some other things that kind of stood out? One of the things that took me by surprise is like these Princeton PhDs they're not going to work at Microsoft, Apple, Google. They're going to go work on this thing called Blockstack. That always, like I said, if they're deciding to work on this thing, there's something here.
Yeah, I mean, I would say there's a lot of smart people working on a lot of like really interesting things. Whether it's someone that forgoes a job at McKinsey to go build like a biotech firm, or some other project. It's like I think, Munib and those guys. I think it was Ryan at the time. It's like regardless of kind of where they came from, and like obviously they're very capable based on what we've seen. But again, it's back to this idea that they're like they had a sign up. This is like my favorite advertisement where Google said don't be evil. That was like part of like their advertising, like the billboards around Silicon Valley that were up. And there's one that if you go and Google can't be evil Blockstack right now, you'll go see what their billboard was. Right. And it was can't be evil, right? Like can't be evil. That was the whole part about an immutable blockchain. And like that vision and that mission and that branding brought in the ethos. It's kind of the same as, Elon is telling all these people at SpaceX, like, hey, we're going to go to Mars. And like, that's the mission of the company. Right. And like a stepping stone to get there, like the closest peak, might be, hey, what's, have high speed internet anywhere in the United or on Earth, along with, what other revenue streams that they can have, because maybe they need trillions of dollars to go to Mars eventually. And so it's like, hey, let's go own this massive thing here. It's a stepping stone, but ultimately they need to get to somewhere else. So I feel like it's the same kind of thing and you're seeing the stepping stones kind of already take place. And now that everyone's building on Bitcoin and the technology's changed a little bit, we've got ordinals that have come around, runes that just launched. Like, I think there's a lot there, but it all holds with this ethos of building on Bitcoin. So I think that's actually like the secret sauce of all this. And then being like having a very like calm demeanor, having, Like I like in a weird way, it's like being really smart and being a hardcore entrepreneur that takes a bunch of risk and, you know, working really hard. Like that's actually like the table stakes in startup. Everyone's got it,
Yeah.
right? You need those things. And then it's like, how else do you stand out?
Very true. Very true. When did you start building Lunar Crush? What was the key insight that you said, this is what we should be building?
Yeah, I mean, it was like, you know, Ethereum tokenization of everything, and, you know, hundreds, if not 1,000 tokens being launched suddenly, like in a month. You know, we saw it a little bit in this last meme coin craze, you know, thousands of tokens being launched on Solana. How do you tell what has value and what doesn't? And like a lot of them don't. Like these are all like startup-y type things. And even in startup, when they get funding, you know, 99% of these things go to zero. In crypto, 99.9% potentially go to zero. And even if you look at the top 10 on CoinMarketCap today, you know, there's only one token from 10 years ago that's still in the top 10, and that's Bitcoin, right? So it's a very hard market to build something on. And so when we saw this, I was like, my mind started to blow up of like, holy shit, like, you know, you could have your house that's like tokenized potentially, or like your car, and you can fractionalize that. And how does this open up like borrowing and lending and leverage, which ultimately is, you know, this kind of like drivetrain to capitalism that's out there. And so when that kind of started to seep in, it was like, wow, kind of at the beginning of what even AI is doing now, where you're like, oh my gosh, the possibilities are endless. And I was just, you know, I'm an entrepreneur at heart. And so I was like, I'm going to make the jump. I'm just going to do it. I know nothing about cryptocurrencies. I know nothing about what's going on here. I'm super green, just like everyone else. I'm just going to jump in, because the fastest way to learn is to start, like, you know, sharpening your teeth on actual building. And once you're in there and you're forced to start learning and building, you just naturally learn. And so,
Yeah.
you know, I'm not calling myself an expert, you know, but being in and around the industry now for, you know, founding Bitcoin in 2015, next year will be 10 years of like following Bitcoin. It's a decade of experience in the space. It's like, you know, I still feel like a newbie a lot of times. I mean, I did a live stream. We were talking before I got on, you know, I did a couple hundred episodes, and it's like there would be a new founder that just started the industry building some sort of like perp DEX across multi-chain. I'm like, dude, I had no clue what you're talking about. And like, I'm building like a pretty reputable project and company in the space. So it's like the talent that's here is pretty epic.
Absolutely. We had, now that the bull market is back, you've probably noticed there's a lot more live streams. There are a lot more Twitter spaces. That's probably one of the things I enjoy about the bull markets, that, you know, during the day I could jump on and I can, like Munib had a Twitter space last night, 7 p.m. my time, 10 p.m. Eastern, right? D Grants has, Hero Gamer at D Grants has one. Bitflow has their own. Then there's the Stacks. Just the regular Twitter space, and then obviously everyone has their own live stream. So I love that the bull market is back, because let me tell you, Joe, in those crypto winters, when you jump on a Twitter space and it's you and two other guys.
Yeah, you're both like, we're poor. Are you poor? Yeah, we're all poor. This sucks.
Did you get wrecked on that one token? Yep, that shit went to zero.
Yeah.
And that's when, you know, like you see the new people come in. I'm like, I'm never going to let go of this thing. I'm going to hodl this shit to the moon. I'm like, you go ahead, buddy. I've been here. I've been around the block a couple times. Take a couple profit, man. You're not going to regret it.
Yep. No, the bull market's great. It's like you're building in these bear markets. It is, the BD slows a lot. You know, Telegram is not going off, you know, as much in a bear market. It's like, hey, do you want to do this? Like, we got no money. They're like, okay, we're not doing that. And so it's just really slow. And so it's for surviving and building and finding your direction. And I feel like people built decently in this bear market. I think this bull market it seemed like it just happened so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's like taking this kind of decent break here over the last like almost 2 months, where it's really taken a break, and we'll see what happens with Bitcoin, you know. But I would have loved to see a little bit more. I mean, building on Bitcoin is, I would say, the largest narrative in the space going into this bull market. You know, I think it's going to kind of carry us through, but we do need to see some interesting apps being built. You know, we do need to see more utility. It's part of like our mission at Lunar Crush also to keep building utility. You know, there's a speculative side to crypto as well. And a lot of people talk about the utility is just kind of these sovereign like, pools of, blockchains everywhere where it's like, hey, when I interact with this app, like I get to, I'm in charge of my data. I'm in charge of my money. I'm my own API that I can turn off whatever I want. And so I would like to see more of that being built, but it is proving very difficult from a UX perspective to get people onboarded still into the industry. As my dad's approaching kind of retirement age, he's a baby boomer, has probably worked an extra 8 to 10 years longer than maybe he thought he was going to work. Right. And so he's still like, out there every day messing with stuff. He's really good, kind of like techie guy. And I'm like, hey man, like here's this website. I think it was like a real world asset, which is just like security tokens rebranded. But hey, we're going to go. I was like, it's basically securitizing like zip codes and trading real estate. And he's, mortgage banker for life. And I was like, you might really enjoy this. I was like, go figure out maybe how to get like, some ETH into this thing and use a MetaMask, and like pointed him just like in that direction. And like, he kind of got it, but it's like, he couldn't get all the way and it was tough, and he couldn't figure out like the gas fees and, what else do I need to send? And how many times do I need to connect this wallet? And the wallet keeps closing and reopening and I have to sign it again. I thought it was working. And it's like, oh my gosh, like we're still not really there from an interaction standpoint. It's still a power user industry. And so that's why the key, I would say, the killer app still is speculation. Hey, figure out how to hold this thing. And then if the number go up, people are excited. But I would like to see a lot more than that.
No, that's a great point, and that's a great segue before we go into Lunar Crush, the platform, because I want to pull this thing up. I'm enjoying it. Talking to you offline, Joe, just realizing you guys are building a ton of alpha into the platform. One of the things I wanted to ask you is new people coming in. I don't know if you're multi-chain yet as far as Lunar Crush is multi-chain, but I know you do have the Lunar token, and that's on Stacks. Why set the flag or plant the flag on Stacks blockchain and have your token on the Stacks blockchain? You could have done Solana, Ethereum. I mean, I'm sure you'll probably do those at some point anyways, but why start with Stacks?
Well, it's already on a bunch of chains.
Okay.
So it has been bridged across to a bunch of different chains. And I think we do live in a multi-chain world. Most of the supply is actually on Stacks now, which is pretty interesting. And so, there's a community over there, like the Alex community is great. There's a great DEX over there. And so a lot of traders, and, I think that it's the utility of the token is obviously the most important part of it. But, when we talk about DeFi, and we talk about, like I said, kind of like this drivetrain of capitalism is DeFi, right? And if a layer one doesn't have a robust kind of decentralized, financial community, you're not going to get the users over there. You're not going to get the speculation. You're not going to get the excitement and just bringing users over there. And that's really, what we're starting to see more. I think Alex was huge for the Stacks ecosystem. I mean, I remember when we started, just as early like CoinList holders of Stacks, like it was like they did a launch on CoinList. And when we had Lunar Crush, I actually interviewed Munib. It was crazy. It was like one of my like first interviews on Lunar Crush Live back in the day. It's a good one if you guys want to go out and if you're listening to this and listen to that, and don't make fun of me for my interview skills, fourth interview in. But I remember right after that, we looked on Lunar Crush and we have like all the top influencers for each project. And at the time it was like, there were like 2 people talking about Stacks on Twitter. And so, also another awesome one on YouTube, go search, it was like some sort of really gnarly, like giveaway that we did with like Freehold and Patrick for some Stacks. But it was like, we did one of the first kind of like social media kind of campaigns for Stacks that started, like there was no one on social media. It was like 4 people talking about all of Stacks, and we look at everything, right? So we know that there's no one out there talking about it except for like Munib and a couple other people here and there. And then we did this kind of, it was like, it's hilarious. It was like the giveaway I was like using, like we got people's Twitter handles, and then it was like I pressed this button and like this like really kind of goofy like Wheel of Fortune thing would go in a circle. And then like someone would get like 50 stacks or something like that. And so it's just me and Patrick sitting on YouTube, just like being all weird. But it worked, and lots of people figured out about this thing, and they're like, at the same time, people like, yes, that was just like a giveaway, right? But once someone got some in their wallet, they had to figure out how to get the wallet. They had to understand how it worked a little bit. Maybe they did a little bit of research, and maybe 25 to 50%, maybe more of those people end up becoming community members. Maybe they build Alex Labs one day, right? So I think those are the types of things of just onboarding people that are really, really interesting.
Funny you mentioned that, because I had totally forgotten about Freehold and Patrick Stanley. Shout out to Patrick Stanley. That was my first ever time that I've earned crypto for doing something in the real world. And at the time, the concept of Freehold still is behind why we created Zero Authority and why I created this platform, so people could earn reputation. The concept early on in those early days was like, you can use this for more than just hodling and number go up. And that was something that I thought, man, I'll never earn Bitcoin. Like, how would I even earn it? What would I even do? But then I did some work for Freehold, and we started paying people with Bitcoin. So that was amazing. That really changed the way I thought about what this could be. Funny that you brought that up.
My exact point right there. You heard about Freehold, you found it, and now you're building like a company.
I never even thought I was going to build a company either.
Exactly. But like, that's the whole point. It's just, you get that little bit of fire, and you say, oh, I'm now meeting people in this community. I'm now talking with people on Twitter Spaces. I'm now a part of what's going on. Oh, shoot. I've been in this for 6 months, 8 months. Maybe I'm kind of a little bit of an expert, and then you find yourself, at the bar talking with your friends, being like, you should probably look into this thing if you want to figure out about crypto. And now you're evangelizing, all because of just one little Wheel of Fortune game or whatever the heck I was doing. But it's like, that's the same type of feel.
Yeah. The first time we didn't even do live streams at the time, but the first conversation I did, because I was like, I'm going to start I didn't even call it a podcast. I just said, I'm going to start interviewing people, because Joe, you realize this, Stack has a bunch of like kind of engineers, kind of system guys and girls, and we're not always the marketing side of things. We're not always pitching and telling our stories and sharing our stories. We're always just kind of heads down building. So I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna start doing this thing. I reached out to Philip at Arcadico, and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I want to interview you. I did. My second interview was with Alex, and I said, look, guys, I don't know what I'm doing, but I hope that I share what your mission is and the mission of Stacks. Man, you're bringing up some good memories, man.
Yeah, it's been a long road, and I think that, but it's important, it's staying power. And, I think really ordinals, and what Casey did over there also really was tailwinds for Stacks and for building on Bitcoin. I think that and like just Stacks being the kind of the clear winner in that space, people just kind of gravitate towards, what's the largest thing and what's worked, right? And if something exists every day, it exists into the future, is a little bit higher probability that's going to continue to exist into the future. And so I think that, along with just the community, I mean, if you build any project, we have, like, I don't even know if you know this, but we have an NFT project on Stacks. It's called Nakamoto One in Q4. That
Nakamoto One that was going to get they went to the moon.
So going to the moon in Q4 of this year.
Oh, I didn't know you were behind that.
That's great. I love that.
That is amazing.
Yep. Amazing. But it's like just getting that community rallied, and whether it's the Stacks Foundation, Jonas over there at Hero, like, it's just so many different people that were just like, hey, how do we build this? What do we do over here? Oh, you need this smart contract for that, or hey, we need a Clarity dev, to do this thing and knock this out. Like, do you guys know someone that's not working right now, right? Or that would be interested in this, right? And so, shout out Zetsus. And so it's like, that's the type of community that you get. And, it just felt like people were hungry to build something cool, right? And like, we stood that whole project up with like community support. Lunar Crush, yes, was pushing behind the scenes, but it's a, very community driven project. And now we're going to send, I think it'll end up, we'll see where we get by the end of it. But, at where it sits right now, it's going to be over $250,000 in Bitcoin and stacks that's going to go up to the South Pole of the moon as a treasure chest for anyone to get. Like, it's unbelievable, right? And so it's, now we have this next generation of people. It's like, hey, you want to learn about blockchain and physics, right? Now there's a treasure chest on the moon for you. And maybe 50 years from now, what's the price of Bitcoin? What's the price of stacks, right? At some point, is there enough Bitcoin up there where it's worth it to go to get a mission to find the treasure chest, right? And so we built that in on Stacks, just with the way that we were like merging. You have to collect a bunch of NFTs, you merge those, and then you eventually get like an Android. But it was an awesome, amazing community effort.
I love the concept behind it, and I didn't realize how many people were actually truly behind this thing. Because I mean, when it got going, I mean, it took everybody by storm, and that was like one of the first NFT projects that had all eyes on Stacks. It was amazing. This isn't shilling here, Joe, but I am going to tell the community, you would be smart to go grab some Lunar here. It's still it's a great way to participate, and I know we're going to pivot to the to the platform here, but just wanted to tell the community, this is one way to support Lunar and what they're doing, and obviously use a platform. Before we switch gears here too, Joe, that's just amazing that and so when is that supposed to go to the moon exactly?
So it's going up on IM2, so Intuitive Machines, which serendipitously also is a ticker LUNR on the New York Stock Exchange, or it might be the NASDAQ, which is hilarious. But like we worked with a company called Lunar Outpost. So I have a friend at Lunar Outpost, Dr. Forrest Mayan. He's amazing, and the team over there. And so I knew him from a long time back, and they're the ones where we actually engraved the private key onto their lunar rover. And so that lunar rover is then going up on an Intuitive Machines lander. So there was this big hoopla probably 60 days, 2 months ago about the lander that landed on the moon that like just tipped over at the last second. I don't know if you remember seeing that, but still like a mission accomplished. But I was like pretty glad that we were on the second one. And so basically the lander is going to come down. So it goes up on a SpaceX rocket.
Okay.
And then lander comes out, lands on the moon, and then little doggy door opens on the lander, and boom, our rover comes out. Rover will be active for roughly 14 days. They're doing a mission for, I think it's Nokia, where they're testing LTE on the moon. Like astronauts are going to need to make phone calls on the moon someday. So they're testing that.
Wow.
And so for us, a part of that is, hey, there's now a little license plate on the back of that with private keys, and no one has the private keys. And we even did an inscription process, and that's on YouTube, and we live streamed that, where you can see the process where we put this private key and how we didn't see the private key and how it's all covered. And so that's super exciting. But yes, it's the schedule is supposed to be roughly 6 months after IM1 is IM2, might be a little bit longer. So we're targeting Q4 of this year for the rocket. And so yeah, we're all going to go to this rocket launch, and I've always wanted to see one. I'm also like a SpaceX junkie. Yeah. And so the fact that I get to watch a SpaceX rocket shoot up a lander that going to the moon of something that like I touched is like kind of like a gnarly thing to think about.
It's amazing. Can you couldn't have made that up, 10 years ago that I'm going to be doing this thing and it's actually going to go to the moon. Crazy.
I tell this to entrepreneurs all the time and kids in college. Like, I graduated in 2008, and Bitcoin had not launched yet. Right. And so the fact that I'm operating a business that's over 5 years old in an industry that didn't exist when I graduated college. Right. And so when a lot of people say, I don't know what I want to do out of school, I'm like, well, it doesn't matter, because you just have to get out there, and like the thing that you're going to be doing might not even exist.
Totally.
Right. And I'm proof of that. And a lot of people are proof of that. But I think it's tough. It's like people do have blinders. Like, I need to go make money. I need to go do these things, which I think is important. Go do the things that you need to do. But if you have that little itch in you, that little entrepreneurial itch to like do something, like you're going to have to scratch it, or like you're going to die a little bit more sad.
Completely agree. Completely agree. Now is the point here where I'm just like, what I know about the platform, and then what we are talking about offline. It's just so amazing how far the platform has come. And as someone who I know, you start out with the version 1, and then you kind of do multiple iterations, and then you finally get to the point where like, okay, this thing actually looks like I actually had the vision for. Can you just just tell us about that kind of iteration, like where you started and where Lunar Crush is now, like just how amazing that journey has been.
Yeah, I go back and look at that Wayback Machine every once in a while. You know, you can Google it and
Yeah.
look up what your website like used to look like, which is always fun. And going back, I think we called it like human-driven cryptocurrency insights, or just something like really, really weird. But you know, we didn't know what we were building, and you know, we didn't. It's almost like we were building something that people didn't know that they needed at the time. And like, I think that still kind of rings true, you know, and I think we've always been Web3 first. We've always, which it wasn't even Web3 back then. We've always been kind of crypto first. I mean, NFTs came along, you know, we started Lunar Crush before NFTs really were a thing. And so it's, you know, you just have to kind of adapt and iterate and, you know, stay nimble, you know, like we've added runes, you know, that wasn't a thing. Now we added it. Right. And I think one of the big changes that we did make along the way is that we are looking at all topics and all creators across these different categories that we have. Like it used to just be cryptocurrencies, then it was NFTs, then we added stocks, and now you can look at the US election, you can look at the PGA Tour, you can look at UFC, and you can see these things. And so for us, we wanted to kind of broaden out and kind of be like search for social media. But I think the secret sauce for us is kind of pairing that up with this market data that's out there. And so, you know, we're already feel like we're the best at, you know, aggregating social media data at scale. And then how do we like add value to that by adding cryptocurrency prices in there and figuring out what we're doing? And so, you know, it's always a labor of love to figure out what works, what doesn't, find different business models that you think work. I mean, we've cycled through a bunch of those, figuring out what we wanted and what works and what doesn't. You know, trying to do an ads model in the middle of a bear market when no one has any money is probably not a good idea, right? So like looking back on that one, I don't know what I was thinking. And so, you know, we tried, you know, we had like a multi-chain DEX, right? And like this thing was like probably one of the most robust like DEXs that like you could potentially, they had tens of thousands of cryptocurrencies, including Bitcoin. No one used it, right? And so it's just, you know, people have lock-in to the things that they want. And so for us, you know, we have always had kind of this die-hard core user that's just always come back for social data, always comes back for social data. And so for us, like that's, you know, that's where we go deep now, right? Like we're going to add more social media networks. Like we're looking at things like Farcaster and Warpcast and the social media that's happening over there. You know, AirChat is now an audio only that's out there. There's different things where it's how do we really disseminate and dissect the language that's out there into insights.
You know, the most valuable thing that I find on Lunar Crush is who are the insiders in a particular ecosystem. It is so hard to find like who are the Cardano influencers. Who I think ETH is pretty well known, but then you get into some of the ETH DeFi, ETH kind of like Gitcoin kind of protocols that you want to see. Where are people giving? And so like obviously like Stacks, I know a lot of the people in Stacks, but if you're new to Stacks and you wanted to see, well, who are the top influences and voices in that ecosystem, this platform, I find it extremely valuable in that regard.
Yeah, we're probably the best place to do that, right? At scale, is figuring out who's impactful and who are the creators that are posting about these projects. And if it's something that you're investing in, it's pretty important, right? Who are the loudest voices that are marketing, that are talking about this? Is it mission driven? What does that look like? Are there any new people, right, that are now talking about this? And so kind of what we find is that projects that have other people talking about them that aren't just themselves usually are some of the best projects that are out there. It means they've kind of got this like viral nerve that the narrative that they're a part of is working, right? And so that's a huge piece. And yeah, a lot of people will go look at who the top creators are, you know, like looking at, like if you go to Stacks right now, and I can share too if you want me to.
Yeah,
you know,
please share and take us on a test drive.
I can share some stuff and make sure I'm sharing. I don't want to like share my whole screen right now with you, but here we go. So like get back there.
Let me know when it's ready.
Yeah, it should be ready.
Okay, bringing it on screen now.
Sweet. Nice. Yeah, so like if I like how to get down there, it's like here's like the categories on Lunar Crush, right? So like technology, social networks, countries, like, give you 3 guesses, and the first 2 don't count what the top countries are. And then you got crypto, automotive, finance, right? So cryptocurrencies. And this used to be like our entire website here. It was just like this page.
Wow.
So like the fact that you can dive into all 32 categories now is pretty incredible. But still, a lot of people are on Lunar Crush for this reason exactly. And looking at, this is the way that a lot of people are used to seeing the market, right? Sorted by market cap.
Yeah.
Bitcoin, Ethereum, Tether, BNB, which BNB's had like, it seems like a run. No one's talked about it. But, if I filter and I'm going to look at, something like social dominance, right? And then I'm going to sort by that social dominance. Maybe it's going to look a little bit different, right? Bitcoin, obviously, still up there. Then you got Chainlink. A lot of people are talking about Chainlink. Chainlink kind of like, holding its own right now in the market. Still some of the top stuff. And then there's like a meme coin, Pepe, top 6. And so it's like,
what is the column next to price? What does that say?
So that's alt rank. So that's one of our proprietary metrics. And so the way that works is we combine all of our social metrics and then price performance. And then we look at market volume. We correlate those 3 things. Are they moving together? And if they are, we force rank the entire market. And so whatever the number 1 alt rank is right now means that there's a lot of social activity. Price has been moving up compared to the rest of the market. Market volume is moving up. And so what you're going to see a lot of times is a lot of green in these categories. And so this is actually a metric that like a ton of people use Lunar Crush for, is to look at alt rank and then how is alt rank moving. So like, here's 1 week on Hedera, right? And so the alt rank, you want to be number 1, and as soon as this thing went from like 940 down to like top 30, it's like it started catching the move way early, and then bam, the price started to like move up here, and then it's kind of held in that top category there. So sorry, I scrolled around, but
interesting.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool. And like, we do this in real time across 10,000 cryptocurrencies, and stocks and NFTs. And like every single second, there's a new alt rank score that's coming out there. And so, looking at that again, you can kind of see as price starts to move up, alt rank is like moving down. And so a lot of times it's kind of catching that just a little early. And so a lot of people actually use our API. We have an API. People are using our API and they're picking that up in real time and kind of building on top of it, which is pretty cool too.
What are some things people are building with your APIs?
Like Coinbase is a customer of ours. They're awesome. They use it for all of their explore pages. So they're kind of driving more SEO to their platform. So, they've got a bunch of different social metrics on all their different pages that are out there. So if you're out there Googling, Twitter something for, EOS, like Coinbase might now rank because they've got more content on their page. We've got a ton of like little kind of hedge fund mom and pop type people that are utilizing it for trading in their own different ways. Some people for crypto, some people for stocks, right? Some people are looking at it for other things like different topics. And there's a lot of social arbitrage and mining in like the gambling industry as well. And so people looking for different things that are out there, injury reports, different things that can move a line like very quickly. And so there's just a lot of things that real-time social data is needed for.
What is you said NFTs, you're tracking NFTs as well?
Yep. NFTs as well.
NFTs or ordinals or?
It's kind of been all over. Most of it is a lot of ETH that we have.
Okay.
For us, it's like, we haven't seen as much traction on like the NFT section as NFTs are just kind of, they're down right now. Right. And so we're trying to kind of focus on different categories. Like we added runes, and we've kind of, I would say focused a lot on the other categories that are out there and trying to grow those too.
Can you show the runes? Just curious on.
Let me see if we've got a
because there really isn't a lot of places where you can go and see runes. I mean, you have Magic Eden just finally launched something, and then there's Unisat, a couple of marketplaces. But yeah, there's
really a bunch on here. So depending on if we can get some like price feeds, so it's still a little incomplete, but we are getting some things that are coming through, like Dog Go to the Moon. Let's see if we've got some rising sentiment there.
What's the sentiment on Dog? How's that looking?
Very positive.
Yeah.
So 92% right now. And a lot of the sentiment, it ranges for a lot of things. So I'd say, look at when you're looking at sentiment across something, like I'm sure like maybe Bitcoin be like a little bit easier. But basically if something's like in a range with sentiment, it's kind of like there's a floor and then there's, let's see if we can bump this out. So like Bitcoin seems to not really be getting like below, like there's some out here below 70, and it's not really getting above 90 too much. So it's like Bitcoin is Bitcoin, right? And so I think that's kind of like a big piece is also just like ranging of sentiment. So it's like people are bullish on Bitcoin, like no matter what. Like even when the price is going down, people are like, I'm holding forever. It's going to 250, it's going to $1 trillion.
Well, so this brings me to the next thing, and I know we're going to be wrapping up sooner or later. Joe, you were telling me about Earn, and I was blown away by the capabilities. I was hearing about it, but I didn't know exactly what it was. And can you tell us about Earn and how it came to be and how people are using it? Because I was blown away. I was like, this is amazing.
Well, thank you. And yeah, no, I appreciate you like kind of like let me shill here too. Hopefully we provided like a lot of value. Hopefully we're providing a lot more. But this is so Earn was we have all the social data that's out there, right? And we know how many interactions people are driving, all these creators, like we said, that we're looking at on Lunar Crush. And so for us, how do we create transparency? That's kind of always been our mission on social media. How do we create transparency with campaigns for influencers or micro influencers or large influencers? And how do you know if someone's, been paid to talk about a project? Or if you're a brand, how do you get influencers to talk about you at scale, right? Versus having to go onesie, twosie, and you don't know. It's more like an awareness campaign. It's like a billboard versus like an install ad on Instagram, right? And so we wanted to kind of create the awareness campaign that is social media and turn that into a performance campaign where brands actually know how many interactions people are driving. And then we wanted the influencers to be able to monetize their brands and themselves at scale and earn for posting about things. And so, that's kind of what led to Lunar Crush Earn. And so here's a campaign, that we ran. Like, you can come in here and see all the completed ones. These are all the tests that we've been running. It's only been live for a week. We're going to let outsiders kind of come into this starting the end of this week. We got some beta people, but Stacks Nakamoto. So we had a $500 budget. And, how do you participate? Use the required content in your social media posts. Required content could be in any order, tell stories, add images. This was just on X, we ran it. And so the overview was Stacks is going through a Nakamoto upgrade, 5-second confirmations, like giving some people some background. And then as an influencer, you can come in here, you can hit copy or whatever it is. You go to your X account. If you posted with hashtag STX or @Stacks in a post, you then qualify for this part of this $500 budget. And, you can see all the different creators in here that posted about it. And normally as a brand, like you hire like 1 or 2 creators, and that takes a lot of time, effort, energy. Like this is just a random test campaign that we started. And there's, almost 100 people in here that are going to get paid for this and can amplify this. And so the way that it works, I even posted on this one, I got 8,000 interactions. So I got, 1% of this budget turned into $5.34 or 60 Lunar for me. Right. And then I can claim that. I connect my Leather wallet. I claim that down into Lunar on Stacks and boom, I've got it. Right. And so as an influencer, you're in here and it's like, hey, I earned $5 for one post. Right. Like what if I did 100? What if I did 100 of them? And so, it's pretty cool. We've built some fun stuff in here. We wanted it to kind of feel very DeFi, but like every new campaign, like what's the rate per new 1,000 interactions that you drive? Obviously every campaign kind of goes down over time. They should all basically end almost very low. But basically we wanted creators to know what it would look like. And then as a brand, what you're seeing is here's how many different creators are talking about my brand every single hour, how many interactions are being driven for my brand every single hour. And then you can see where I posted. It's kind of towards the end of it, seeing where I'm at. And so this is all public. And so, different categories. And then here's all the activity and how many creators are posted. So 51 creators. Here's all the posts. And so Alp here, who is like the #1 Stacks influencer right now, he's been doing these long threads. He didn't even know that he qualified for this when he posted, right? But now he's qualified and, he can come to Lunar Crush and he can claim Lunar on Stacks, which is super cool. And so as people are going through here, you get 2 posts per campaign as an influencer. If you're a brand, you have complete control of this. If people are spamming or doing things you don't want them to do, you just disqualify them because you don't want them to be associated with your brand. So we want to give brands a lot of control. Obviously, if you're posting really good quality content, then you qualify. But we don't want brands to pay for something that they're not happy with. So pretty cool stuff here. And so, you come in here, it's really simple to create a campaign. Like right now we have 2 more tests going. There's, 20 minutes left on the Polygon one. There's about a day left in this lunar campaign. So if you come here, there's already, almost 40 creators talking about it. There's, if you post about this, you're going to do pretty well. All you have to do is use heart emoji, purple heart emoji, and $lunar, and you will then see your post and everything populate in here, and you can start earning. And so the goal here is to have hundreds of different people running awesome campaigns on social media to help grow their brands with micro influencers or influencers that are out there that they want to be associated with. And so we're reading this gap between creators and brands that is huge right now. And so, we're doing that, in a Web 2 way, but with a Web 3 utility of that's the incentive of what's going on. And so like we talked about at the beginning, I'd love to see more things being built that have true utility, that utilize cryptocurrency in a sovereign way for people to have access to it. Right. And so it's, when people get this and they get access to it, it's their token, right? They have access to it. We can't do anything. And that's the whole point of all this. And so, here's just one use case of that, which is pretty cool.
I love it, man. When we were talking about it, I was just blown away that there's products like this starting to exist where it bridges the gap. One of the things I think, just kind of hearing your story, we were talking about these use cases earlier on some Twitter spaces this morning, and the conversation is just heating up again. And it's like, how do we make it easy for people that just don't know about Web3 to come in and get a wallet and start using it? I was on a Twitter space with the Gitcoin Foundation, and it was recognizing women. There was the topic today was decentralized science, and one of I think she's a professor down in Brazil, and her colleague had said, "Oh, you're going to qualify for this Gitcoin grant." And she said, "Well, what is Gitcoin and what is this?" So she had to, scramble and learn how to use MetaMask and get a wallet, and then see how to use it, then get this money in her wallet. And it's just like a real pain point today. But then what I'm seeing here with Earn, people are already doing all type of content creation on X, on Twitter, on Discord, on Telegram, on all various ways too, right? And there's different social apps on different chains like Farcaster on ETH, and then you have Console DAO like on Stacks, right? You have all the emergence of Nostr is still a big one out there. A lot of Bitcoiners are on Nostr. Hasn't lived up to its potential yet, but there's still time. But how do you incentivize people with these real world rewards, and then do it in a Web 2 sense where it's just super easy to use? That's why I got excited about what you just showed me, Joe.
Thanks. Yeah, that's a goal. It's like kind of just interject yourself into a behavior that people are already doing, and then make it simple. You still need a wallet though. But all you have to do is connect your wallet. You don't even need to claim. We just send it. So that's the nice part about some of this. And then, obviously a next easy step would be having just like an off ramp, right? So someone could just select like, put this onto a debit card, right? Or like, send this to Coinbase, or, maybe someone like there's 15 million users on MoonPay, right? Like how do we have just like really simple off ramps for people? And so it's, obviously if someone wants to hold, we're building different utilities around staking. We're building, different utilities. We have a grants program as well. So if you hold 2,500 Lunar, you get to vote on the different projects that are being built on Lunar as well. So we've got some really cool projects that are up for voting right now, which is really awesome if you go to Snapshot and search Lunar Crush DAO. And so there's different reasons to be a part of it. But at the end of the day, for us, it's, it's a pass through of something that has utility and introduced more Web 2 people into this. And so if you're a brand, you don't even know that cryptocurrency is involved with what we're doing. You're just launching a campaign, and you're putting, you pay with credit card, you do whatever, and you now are running a campaign at scale on social media, something that's never been done before. And then all the people that are creators that are interacting with that, those are the ones that are actually touching different cryptocurrencies.
Well said. What are some things in the pipeline that you already alluded to it, the staking grants, so we at Trajan Zero Authority, we work with Stacks Foundation and their D grants team, right, to do D grants on a platform. One of the things I think will happen more over time is that different protocols, different organizations will run their own. It'd probably be a smaller scale, decentralized grant process at their own scale, and then that will continue to scale over time, right? How do you see that playing out for Lunar Crush?
I mean, for us, are people building at the intersection of social media, AI, and Web3? And if so, how do we help bolster their position in the market? How do we help them from a marketing standpoint? Can I coach, someone that's a CEO to be a part of that, right? And so they just apply for a grant. There's a treasury that's there. And then if the community votes for it and it passes, then they get it. It's pretty simple. And so if they're building, across those three things, if there's they have to be building something that has Lunar utility into it as well, and then they get access to our community that we built and our ecosystem that's really social media driven. And so we'd love to see, we have all this data, and like social media data can be used for so many things, right? And like what you see on lunarcrush.com is just our vision and version of what we see this data being used for. But I mean, we're not doing anything, that has to do with too much with sports right now. We'd love to do more, but we're a small team and we're a small startup. Like, how do we scale and have that developer ecosystem be just as big, if not 10 times bigger? I think it was like Shopify that kind of said they always wanted their app developers to be making, 51% of the profit and revenue that came through the system. It's like, I think that's the best way to build, an ecosystem.
Yeah, I do too. As far as like the data feeds, what do you think the future of just kind of interoperability, how would that look across different chains in your mind?
Just the future of interoperability across different chains? Or
initially I was thinking about like Lunar Crush with your data feed, and then I was thinking, well, what about living in this multi-chain world? There isn't I don't think a lot of people have a thesis about like how multi-chain will exist in the future, but just curious on what your take is, if you have one.
Yeah, I mean, our data it just comes like pipe through like an API. So it's like that, I think it will start to live. We've had some ideas around oracleizing some of the data so that it's a little bit easier to access for different dApps that are out there, like utilizing like a Chainlink or an API 3. But that data just kind of lives and people build on it in more of a Web 2 sense. Mm-hmm. But, it's like just thinking about, like Ethereum is not going away, right? Like, I don't think Solana is going away. Like, even when you think down the chain a little bit to something like an EOS, right? Like, a lot of people are like, oh, I remember EOS, right? What have they done? And it's like, probably not a lot, but they do own things like Bullish. They do now own, which owns like CoinDesk, or they're part of the foundation that kind of pushes that. They also have like 130,000 Bitcoin, and they're one of the largest Bitcoin holders like in the world. And so when you think about that, it's like, that's like larger than most university endowments in the United States. Right. So it's like, they're not like if you manage that money correctly, they're going to, like, EOS will outlive all of us, even if it has zero utility. It's just a massive foundation. And so they're also making probably tons of money off of market making. Right. And so it's like, this is a kind of a wild world to think about, of like, people have unlimited opportunity to continue to try and build things, and they can fail in perpetuity and still exist. And so, but I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I do think that was like a once in like a generation wealth creation that happened, but it doesn't mean that that's going to stop. I mean, if some of these meme coins did a really nice job of managing treasury in these last run-ups, like, I don't know, Slurf could be sitting on $200 million, Like, and what does that look like? So I don't know. It's that to me is an odd thing, but you can really tell kind of the infrastructure and like the picks and shovels of the industry around the layer twos that are layer ones and layer twos that are high quality. And so I think that like those communities will survive. Like when you think about Stacks, you think about this conversation we're having, you know, and like no one from the founding team like is here. We're just like early adopters that are stoked on what's happening. That's not easy to build, right? And so I think that is what will have longevity. And so those are the things that I'm always looking towards if you are going to, you know, make an investment somewhere. Obviously not financial advice, but it's, you know, what does the community look like? Does the community grow over time? That's kind of why we built Lunar Crush, is to look at that over 2-3 years of time. Is the community growing? And then are the builders there? Are you excited about the ethos? Do you go to a conference and you feel like you jive with those people, you know, and like, that's how you make those decisions. Cause that's actually like, people can kind of invest on feel in a weird way, which a lot of people are better at than like investing on, you know, will this earnings report beat the last one?
It's interesting you showed Chainlink, because I've always been bullish on Chainlink. The one thing about Chainlink that drives me crazy is that their foundation sells a lot of their tokens, and so like it kind of suppresses the price, and then people are like, when is this shit going to go up, right? And it may end up going up, and who knows, 2035, when the foundation doesn't own the vast majority anymore. When you were showing me this, something I started thinking about is about CCIP, right, and their cross-chain interoperability. And then I started thinking, well, if you're multi-chain, right, Ethereum, Stacks, Solana, and you know, my thesis is that the L1 race is over. Like, you can't compete with L1s. Like, they're already established, they already exist. It's kind of like the cloud providers, right? There's already Google, Amazon, and Microsoft, and you know, there's little ones like DigitalOcean and other ones, and there's some that pop up here, but that L1 race is kind of over. I may be completely wrong, Joe, but I just think that's why you kind of have to go up the stack at this point. You have to focus on the apps and start building like some utility. It's still early, but you have to build utility. When you think about that interoperability, have you thought about CCIP and like launching on CCIP, or is it more so just kind of focus on ETH, Solana, and Stacks right now?
Yeah, well, we're not on Solana, so it's just ETH, Stacks, Polygon, BNB, Zilliqa, Proton actually too. So you know, it's like, as a project, you know, you have other communities that really want you to bridge over, and so you bridge over, and you provide as much as you can. But it is tough to be spread thin, especially with like development resources around, you know, how do you, because each one needs like liquidity pools, right? And then each one, you know, might need some incentive to get things going. And so you kind of like, you know, you want to focus and really grow a community somewhere. And then maybe you wake up and you're like, well, maybe we don't need to grow a community anywhere else. We just need to keep focusing on this one thing. It's kind of like a startup. It's like, how many fires, you know, do you need to put out at the same time?
Yeah.
But like with regards to the question about like, or your comment about L1s and like, is it baked and will there be new ones? Like, I think there's always going to be new things popping up, but I do agree. It's almost, I've kind of always said, I feel like our industry is almost like too entrepreneurial. Like, you know, you're seeing someone's like, I'm going to go start this new L1. It's like, dude, just go work for someone else for like a little bit. Like, you don't need to go start something brand new right now. Like, it's so early. Like that one L1 that's crushing it has 14 people there. Like, you'd be number 15. Like, you don't need, like, go do that for 2 years. And so I do think that there's something there with, you know, maybe the bifurcation of the industry does hold us back a little bit, you know, because we don't have all the talent, you know, circled and rallying around one thing. And it's kind of, you know, if we had more people working, is it, you know, 1 + 1, you know, equals 3? It could be. So I agree. It's like, I would love to see more apps being built. And even if it's just disrupting finance and DeFi, like I want to see like Uniswap, like buy a bank. You know, I want to see Netflix sunset their stock in the New York Stock Exchange and launch, you know, a token with Coinbase on an exchange and be tokenized. You know, I want to see those crazy things that, you know, maybe 10 years ago we thought that's insane, but probably would think a Bitcoin ETF is insane. And having like the most traded ETF that's out there, it's like, that probably seems crazy. You know, I still almost can't believe that that's a real thing. And so I want to see those other really large paradigm shifts. I think like OpenAI and Sam Altman, and they've got credits, and the way that like the API, it's like I'd love to see something there. Like I know he's got WorldCoin, but something there around just really large scale businesses adopting the technology and making it more seamless. Like I want to see houses tokenized. I want to see them fractionalized, like especially down by the beach over here in Orange County, you buy 1/8 of a house, and that's becoming a real thing now with how housing prices are. And so, how cool would that be if that was all driven by some sort of, Web3, UX, where I have, some sort of, device like a key or something else, and that's on a blockchain. And, that gets me into that house. And maybe there's a little pool that opens and I can vote, for the weeks that I want the house this year, right? Or whatever else it may be. It's like those things are just more seamless and trustless. And, I think that like if I could sell that thing on my own and and everyone else could just vote very quickly that I could sell that thing, like that stuff's cool. It's like, I want to see that.
Same here.
Yep.
Joe, this has been an awesome conversation. I'm so glad we finally had you on the Zero Authority podcast. It's all the things you've been building, the time that you've been around in Stacks, in Bitcoin, on blockchain, just building and showing others how to do it too. It's phenomenal, man. I'm so glad we had you today. I'm so glad you took us through what you're building and so on this podcast is great to shill. We want to just learn more, and we want to use. I always tell people, I would highly encourage people to use more Web3 products, and get the value too. Even if it's Web2, but there's some type of Web3 component, use it and try it out and learn more. Before we let you go, obviously, wanted to pull up on screen here let me make sure. Let's see. Wanted to pull on screen here. Where can people? It's not working. 1 second. Let me pull up your socials, so people can find you. And there we go. Let me pull this on screen. Is the best place to find you at Lunar Crush? And
Yeah, no, definitely give us a follow at Lunar Crush. And then, if you hit the affiliates on that one, you'll see all the kind of accounts related to Lunar Crush and what we're doing. But yeah, so mine's at Jovez. Give John a follow as well at John Farjo. He's our head of product. He's great. And Nakamoto One. We got the Nakamoto One handle as well.
Yes.
Give that one a follow.
Awesome stuff. Yeah, I did not know you were behind this.
That was kind of the point.
Yeah, but I mean, when people know that it's you, I mean, that just makes it even better, because like I can put a face to it. That makes it more real.
Yeah. We got some awesome videos. Actually, they came down, but we're gonna republish them. But we have some really awesome background videos about the partners. So we did one on us at Lunar Crush. We did one with Lunar Outpost, and then we did one with Golden Wolf. So Golden Wolf did all the artwork. They actually ended up getting acquired by Doodles, which was crazy after they did all this work with us. Wow. So they're part of Doodles as well. So
that's incredible.
Really awesome, just crew of people. Like Stacks helped a ton with just, like providing resources and everything else as well. But they're always like kind of just in the background. So it's like, just wanted to support us and what we're building. And so, yeah, we're going to the moon too. So check us out there.
Well, I can't wait to have you back on at a later date. Joe, what you guys are doing with Lunar Crush is just amazing, brother. So
thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. I can't wait to have you on after you guys land on the moon and come back. I can't wait to see those clips. You guys had some amazing videos in that lead up. It got everyone bullish. It was amazing.
Yes. Yeah, no, it was awesome. Well, thank you for that.
Thank you, Joe. And you have a good one, and take care of those kiddos, man.
All right, my man. Take care.
Bye.
All right. Cheers.
Zero Authority is a community of people who believe in open source and permissionless systems. Thanks for supporting the community. Remember why you started.